This will be our first episode called In the Middle, episode number 1. We're trying something out here. We've been meeting and discussing and seeing how this could look. And sorry, I should introduce us first. My name's Kurt Gerald. I'm with Pastor Elisha and Pastor Jonathan. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves instead of me? I think it would be cool to have y'all introduce yourself.
Sure, go ahead, Jonathan.
I am Jonathan Kim. I am a pastor at the United Methodist Church. I'm currently serving in a church in Milton, Wisconsin, and I'm just excited to see what the Lord has in store for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. My name is Elisha Cho. I serve as pastor of Danvers Church of the Nazarene in Massachusetts. And as Jonathan mentioned, I'm excited for what God has in store.
Awesome. So this is brand new. Usually we're actually free flowing, just talking, having conversations, and they've been going amazing so far. And I wanted to try something different out tonight. I'm going to be interviewing. We're going to be interviewing people as well at some of the episodes, and I'd like to test some of the questions out. And what better way to test them out on you guys so that everyone else can get to know you guys as well, which would be pretty cool. Are you guys open for that?
Yes, of course. Yes.
All right, cool.
Yes, ready.
So the first one, it could be a very lengthy question. I'm sure we could go for hours on it, and I'd love to hear a lot about it. But I'm just going to ask it. Let's start with Pastor Elijah. Is that cool?
Sure.
So could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, right? Like your background, where did you grow up? What were your early years like? Growing up.
Yes, thank you. Well, I was born in South Korea, and at the age of 7, my family moved to the UK. So we lived in the UK, first in London for a couple of years, and then in Manchester for a couple of years. And that's where I spent most of my formative years. I finished my primary school in England. And I remember as a kid being very lost in the culture and not knowing the language. I was the only Asian kid in my school, in probably all of the schools I went to. And they had no idea where Korea was. So I was always kind of the Chinaman because that was the only Oriental country they knew. Nonetheless, by God's grace, after watching a lot of TV for the first 6 months of my stay in England,
That's how you
watching
learned?
cartoons, yeah, that's how I learned
That's
how to
awesome.
speak and understand the language a little bit. And after 6, 7 years living, about 6.5 in England, coming back to Korea, that was another culture shock because I like to say my hardware, I look Korean. So everybody expects my Koreanness, but my software had already been British, so
Got you.
I didn't feel like I really fit in when I came back to Korea. And in Korea, everybody expects you to be a certain level in academics, like studying is everything. That's kind of our culture. And I didn't fit in. But by the grace of God, I was able to find my niche, which was languages. So I had a calling early on in my life at the age of 15 to be a missionary. And I felt in order for me to serve in that capacity, I needed to learn Chinese Mandarin. And so God led me to a high school where I could learn Mandarin. And I moved to a church that spoke only Mandarin in Korea. And I learned how to speak and learned the culture and whatnot. So again, didn't fit in to the church, didn't fit into that culture again, but always kind of moving. So I guess my the theme would be just being a misfit.
Misfit.
Yeah, being a misfit, not feeling like I belonged anywhere. So trying to navigate that
Yeah.
sense. Um, and fast forward, I go to the military and I meet Pastor Jonathan. We weren't pastors back then. But my military service really formed and shaped me
Mm.
to know that I needed to grow and mature. I could see that I wasn't a good human being, even though I professed myself to be a Christian. I didn't know how
Hard
to
for me to
live.
believe that. It's hard for
Yeah. Oh no, no, no. I have many downfalls,
mm,
many things that I would have done differently, knowing what I know now. But nonetheless, in 2009, around the time when I was getting discharged from the Air Force, I met. God led me to a mentor, and that mentor took me under her wing, helped me to heal from a
mm,
lot of that trauma of being a misfit,
gotcha.
and helping me to embrace the love of God in a very personal way.
Mm,
I knew it up here, but it had never really sank in down here to really help me heal. And I think that healing process is continuing. And she was able to help me find my calling to be a preacher of the gospel. And so, with that, I was sent from that church where my mentor is serving to the Philippines as a missionary for a year. And during that time, I got to court my current wife. And so, after she graduated college, we got married
mm,
and came to the States. And again, another misfit.
yeah.
So I speak kind of the language, but in a different accent.
I like to say
But
you speak it better than me.
New England. Oh, thank you. New England, another different, environment.
Very.
Um, and yet the Lord has been really gracious to me in
Mm,
helping me find a tribe to call home, the Church of the Nazarene. Shout out to the Church
yeah,
of the
yeah.
Nazarene tribe. My people, as you would say, which I agree wholeheartedly. They embraced me. They've loved me. They help me feel that I belong, even
Mm,
though I don't look like a New Englander per se. But it's been a good journey, and throughout that journey, God has been gracious in that now I get to serve
mm,
at the church where I've been attending and serving in a more lead servant role. So I've been at the same church for 12, going on 13
oh, wow.
years, and that's something that I would have never dreamt of. But in
Mm,
God's kindness, I've been able to be at the same church, growing together. And I always say this to our congregation who've been here long enough: you have raised me.
mm,
As a man of God, you have prayed for me, you have loved me, you have given me a lot of mercy, a
mm.
lot of grace, so that I can grow as a servant of the Lord. So uh, that's kind of my background, a misfit, welcoming misfits into the kingdom of God.
I love that. I love that. Misfits welcoming misfits. I can definitely vibe with that. Absolutely. And you know some of my story, and I definitely vibe with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and doing it. That was, man, if somebody asked me to do that, it would take me, maybe I need to work on that, learn how to do an elevator pitch in my life. Cause that was very full, but very like brief also. I don't know. That was
Appreciate it.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, Pastor Jonathan, would you, do you want to repeat the question? Or do
Oh
you,
no, no, I'll just go ahead. And Kurt,
sweet.
thank you for piling up the pressure, Elisha, just as well of that
Yeah.
elevator pitch in life. So I was born in South Korea. I came to Chicago. Well, actually Tulsa first. My father decided to um, study abroad while he was in Korea. So our family relocated to the U.S. We were in Tulsa for a little bit before moving to Chicago. That's where I spent most of my childhood, basically Chicago, Chicagoland.
Mm,
And the age of 12, I moved back to Korea. And again, the same thing. Now, when I was living in the States, now you have to, my legal name is Chin Key. So if you
Oh,
say it the
really?
wrong way, or say, like it's like the most like it's a derogatory term for my race, right? But I
Is
never ever got made fun of,
wow.
never ever, and I think that's just God's grace.
Amen.
Uh, and also, for an Asian guy, I'm big, so I think that has something to do with it too,
Yeah.
of just being physically just as big as like the rest of my classmates,
Yeah.
and my experience is uh funny in the U.S. I went to school. First went to Chicago. I lived in Rogers Park. My preschool and kindergarten all black except maybe one Indian kid, I think, and like two white kids, and then I was the only East Asian there. And then I moved to a Jewish town where I thought Hanukkah was just a normal U.S. holiday because everyone was celebrating it.
Yeah.
And then I moved to a predominantly Polish and Greek suburb. So, it's sort of the immigrant life. I was able to live that. A lot of Koreans kind of followed, right, inner city to one suburb to another suburb, as they kind of gain wealth. I sort of went that immigrant track, but my dad moved back to Korea. So my middle school and high school, most of it I spent in Korea, and I decided to come back mainly because I just couldn't adjust in Korea. I mean, socially I was fine. I mean, my best friends are, we still meet every time I go to Korea. They'll come out of the woodwork just to meet with me and stuff like that.
Mm.
But it was the education system, and it was just when something's ingrained in you as a kid of being independent, or and then you go into a more collectivist culture, it is quite difficult. So
Mm.
I certainly resonate when Elisha said, being a misfit.
Mm.
I don't think I ever felt like I was a misfit because I live in my own world anyway. So I don't really have this urge to want to fit in.
Good.
My urge actually was what made it more difficult was I think even at a young age I felt a tremendous amount of pride about being better than others. That was what made my life. It was what made my day. So it's like it didn't matter what grade I got; it had to be better than the person next to me.
Mm.
And so because I lived like that, I think Korea was miserable for me because of the language barrier. Right? I didn't know that much Korean.
Wow.
So I didn't even understand the questions in the exam. So that was very difficult for me. It wasn't about fitting in. I've always fit in just fine. But it was really that I didn't know it then. Anyway, I came here for my senior year. I went to the University of Wisconsin Madison for my undergrad. I graduated and I had to go back to Korea because of my compulsory military service, as all Korean citizens are required to do. And that's where I met Elisha. I got actually the funny thing is it's really interesting that I'm doing this with Elisha because as I was praying as I was getting discharged, I'm like, God, are you calling me to ministry? And
Mm.
Elisha like knocks on my door like the day after, and he's like,
Yeah.
I've been praying, man, and God told me to tell you that you have a calling for ministry. And I'm like, oh, geez. Like, I
That's
mean,
nice.
because like my grandfather was a pastor, and I knew the life. I knew. It wasn't. I'm not gonna say like pastors like have a good life. I'm not gonna go and say like pastors are like, oh, I know some pastors really have difficult lives just for the sake of the gospel. But I don't want to paint that image. Like we had a very comfortable life.
Mm.
So much so that I'm almost ashamed of it, to be honest. But we had a very, very comfortable life. So it wasn't that. It was seeing how the family had to go through what the father chose as a profession. And so that was something that was in my mind. But anyway, I got calling for ministry, but I didn't go in there right away. I asked God, hey, let me just prove to myself once in my life that I could make money and you know be a fat cat, and God said no, but I just said, just give me this one shot, and said, God's told me, he's like, you're not gonna like it, but go ahead.
Mm.
And he blessed me. I had a very, very successful career there, but it was worth nothing.
Mm.
I now hindsight, I wasted my life. I mean, God still redeemed it, but it was my wasted years. I would name it
Mm.
that. I wasted what I could offer to God as a living sacrifice, and it's just by God's grace. And now I find myself here.
Now you're here.
Yeah,
Wisconsin, that's right. You're out in Wisconsin, right?
yeah, yep,
How
yep.
is, I mean, is it as cold as it is here right now?
Yeah, yeah. Wisconsin, I think, is pretty similar, except we
Mm.
get less snow than New England, but pretty similar in
Really?
weather. Hmm.
Interesting.
It's the so if you're
Yeah.
closer to the lake, you get more snow,
Okay.
and so it's just what the water does, right? A big body
Ah,
of water, it just kind
yeah.
of
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
climate stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What, if you don't mind me asking, what was your profession? What did you get into prior to?
So I was a professional lecturer in Korea, and
Wow.
I taught the test of English as a foreign language, which is required for all foreigners to take when they want to study in the States.
Okay.
And also, I taught the SAT exam
Interesting. That's
to give. So I
awesome.
was a
So you're a
so
smart
it's a
dude.
funny story. Well, I wouldn't say smart. I mean, I'm good at faking it. I mean, no, the funny
He's a
yeah,
smart
yeah. So
dude. He is. I know that.
so yeah, a funny story is so the company that I signed a contract with, they bought out Princeton House,
Oh
which is a
wow.
publisher of S. And
Yeah.
they said, hey, can you write the Princeton review book for the SAT? And
Did
that
you do
was
it?
when I was in. No, that was when I was in seminary, and I
Oh,
didn't even pray about it. I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
gave that up. I
Sure.
gave that up.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I regretted it for like 2 minutes
yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you.
like I'm like no, and now even more, I don't
Mm.
regret it at all.
Uh,
Mm, good.
Of
Good for you.
yeah, 'cause you where
it,
you're
it
at now.
really it would not have been good for my soul
Yeah,
Mm.
I
to
hear
do
you.
that.
I hear
So
you.
yeah.
No doubt. That's awesome, man. I respect that. I do. We got a couple people checking in. We got Bill saying what's good. Well, he says he didn't say what's good. That's my language. Hello, gentlemen. Hope all is well. Getting the truck and plows ready, but I got you on listening. Awesome. And then
Nice.
also they're saying hi. Also, what's up, guys? Thank you
All right.
for stopping in. I think Mike's on here too as well. He had texted me a response to something one of y'all said, so I'm assuming he's in here.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome.
So the next questions, you guys actually hit on some of them. So I'm gonna just skip around, and this is just a new learning thing. So bear with me. Bear with me here. So what would you guys say? I guess we'll go back to Pastor Elisha here for this next one. Can you share a time when your beliefs were challenged, and how did that experience like impact your perspective? And then did you actually let's just start there. Can you share a time where your beliefs were challenged, and how did your experience or that experience impact your perspective?
Yeah. Well, in the grand scheme of things, my faith is challenged every day.
Mm, I can dig.
Right? We live in a fallen world.
Mm,
So, but to maybe highlight a time would be during my military years, because the organization that Jonathan and I belonged to, we prided ourselves that we were the elite of the elite.
okay.
And looking back, I'm like, I'm so embarrassed to even share that. Like
Oh,
nobody
No,
knows that we're the.
no, but no, 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 no. But to be fair, in our group, right, was the richest man our age, right, in Korea,
really?
Yeah,
right.
In your
So I
group?
mean,
no
yeah, yeah,
doubt,
no joke, like
no
for
joke.
What?
real, like
Yeah, yeah.
That's
yeah,
So
like
crazy.
it
we we did get to have the privilege of hanging out with some really incredibly
yes,
talented young men.
Nice.
That
yes,
is for
yes,
sure.
yes,
And so somehow I wanted to kind of, put myself with them and think, very highly of myself.
Mm,
Uh, but I think it was feeding into my low self-esteem, just a
mm,
broken sense of self.
yeah.
Because I didn't know who I really was in Christ, though I professed myself to be a Christ follower.
Mm,
I believed that, he died for my sins, and I believed that he's the way, the truth, and the life. I had that gospel knowledge, but it hadn't really sunk in. So I was sharing with Jonathan and some of my peers from the Air Force not so long ago. I apologize for being kind of off the grid for about 10 years because I had to really find myself.
Okay.
And that's when my faith was not only challenged but forged.
Mm,
Like, what is this thing called faith? Like, how do I live this out? What does this mean in terms of identity? What does it mean in correlation to relationships with God, with myself, with others? What does it mean to be raw and honest, that
mm,
authenticity, to
yeah.
say, I'm a small man,
Mm,
wishing that I was a big man, that kind of thing. And trying to sugarcoat it with stuff and just maybe sprinkle a little bit of spiritual language and just overlook it and gloss over it,
yeah.
and making myself look big, and it's like, nah.
Mm,
So my faith was challenged, but at the same time, the challenge helped me to see the real scorecard of my faith,
yeah.
and it wasn't it wasn't a very good scorecard.
Mm,
And by God's grace, through my mentor, through many people praying for me, my parents and my friends, praying for me, praying with me, I was able to slowly but surely get back to the root of my identity
mm,
and understand that that God, he created me for a purpose. It doesn't have to be the same as the richest guy in our age group. It doesn't have to be like Jonathan, who's really good at probably anything that you throw at him. It doesn't have to be like Michael Jordan. It's Elisha Cho. Who does
mm,
God, how does he want to use me for his glory, for his kingdom? And just embracing that and owning that helped me to really find myself. Oh my goodness, I don't have to be the next Billy Graham. I mean, although they're all great people, right? God bless them all, right? But I have to be who God has called me to be.
mm,
I don't have to mimic anybody. I don't have to, I can learn from people, of course,
yeah.
but to find my own voice in this world, that was something that really helped me. So my faith was challenged, and it's still being challenged today. The enemy continues to barrage me with, you got to have more people in the pews, you got to have a bigger
Mm,
building, you got to have a bigger budget, all of these things, right? You got to be successful.
yeah.
But I keep going back to my roots and saying, what does God want for me? And his desire for me is that I be sanctified. In other words, that I become more like his son. I
Mm,
become more Christ-like. That's success in God's eyes.
yeah.
And through that, yeah, there might be a bigger building or a bigger budget or more people, right, in the seats, but that doesn't define me.
Mm, that is
And so I'm continually finding myself in the Lord, and by God's grace, every day, every day.
that's awesome. I heard you say something in there about purpose, and how important do you think purpose is to finding to experiencing? Do you think that there's a correlation? Actually, I'm making this question up as I go. Do you think there's a correlation between purpose and peace?
Oh, that's a good one. I've never linked those two, but I
Mm,
think peace is one of the byproducts of knowing your identity and purpose in Christ.
yeah.
Because I think I would argue that every single person on the planet has an innate desire for truth, the capital T truth, the truth that does not change with the seasons,
Mm,
an absolute truth in my own vocabulary, and not a relative truth, but an absolute truth.
yeah.
And when we can align ourselves with that truth, then purpose comes, and then peace comes, and then every day is not just another day I punch in and punch out to work. It becomes a calling, and that's how I feel. I don't feel like I'm working. Like, I love what I do. I get to do
Mm,
this with you guys.
yeah. 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 This is dope, right?
So yeah, purpose and peace, absolutely. I
Awesome.
think they fall in alignment. Maybe Jonathan has some other thoughts on that, but at least for me,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I view it.
That's awesome. I like that. Jonathan, what do you think? What do you think? Well, I think I'd actually like to hear about your time where a belief was challenged.
You know, Honest to goodness, my
Mhm,
belief wasn't challenged
mhm.
because I didn't know what I believed in.
Interesting.
Wow, good
So
point.
there was no reason for my belief to be challenged
Mhm.
because I profess my faith in Christ.
Okay.
But and Elisha, you can attest to this, right? I wasn't living out, there were parts of me definitely that were very dedicated to Christ.
Mhm.
Right? So like a good story is we have an early morning prayer meeting. Uh just tradition in Korean churches where it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. We go and we pray,
Oh,
and
wow.
Elisha and we would go and do that regularly, just because we felt the need to pray. But there were times where, man, I was out just clubbing and drunk, and I had to go and knock on his door. I'm like, dude, you're driving today because I'm too drunk to drive. And I would go, and that's the irony, right? Like I would go drunk to pray in the morning. Like who does that, right? But the reason why I was doing those things, I think, was because my faith wasn't defined. So I was living out a partial faith. I
Mm,
thought I was being faithful, which I was in as far as one aspect of life, but not fully offering myself to God.
gotcha.
Again, right, that goes to the reason why I was out clubbing was because I wanted to feel like I was it. I was living the
Mm,
life. I was
mm,
better than the average dude who couldn't afford to go out at night, in the posh nightclubs and stuff. And so and Elisha knows exactly what I mean. Uh, and so like that's I think for me it wasn't so much that my beliefs were ever challenged,
mhm,
because I didn't have any beliefs. It's actually recently where I'm like, well, I really need to go all in on believing something now. I realized that for me to live life without wasting it. Remember I talked about the wasted years? I
mhm,
really need to know what I believe in.
mm. Yeah.
And I need to live that out. I need to go all in. I need to
Mm,
first know what I believe in, and then I have to go all in. And so that's sort of the mentality that I ended up having. And so I never ever had a challenge because I didn't know
gotcha.
what I believed in. And now
Gotcha.
going back to the peace and purpose,
Mhm.
I think only when the purpose is to glorify God can we find peace.
That's good.
Because
That's
my purpose
good.
has always been to
Mm,
be better than the guy next to me.
mhm.
I never found peace.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
That's
never, so yeah, I never, like, it was a train wreck, right?
mm,
Like, I'm an accounting major, and the only reason why I'm an accounting major, I absolutely hate it with my just all of my heart. It was
mm,
just awful for me. Only reason I knew that a bunch of Korean international students, they couldn't make it into our business school.
mhm.
And I just want to feel better that I can make it.
No
And then I
doubt.
go in and I'm like, man, like six-figure salary. Only reason why I wanted it because the guy next to me couldn't make it.
Mm,
So, and then what
Mm.
happens? What happens when you're like, what, like, when's the next thing, right? That was my
Yeah.
purpose, is to be better than the guy next to me, right? Or the person next to me. I get the six figures. What happens next,
mm,
right?
Right.
I move into a house in a nice neighborhood. You see the better houses next door. Like it just never ends. And
mm,
so I didn't find any peace in my purpose. And I was very driven with purpose.
mm.
I mean,
Mm.
I was a purpose driven life,
Yeah.
except it was the wrong purpose.
For
And
Wow.
so
yeah.
yeah,
So that's you
yeah.
hit something, and I'm actually gonna play devil's advocate here. That's actually not probably the right term to use, but I'm gonna. Um, so what would you say to somebody who feels as though they're living their purpose and they seem to be enjoying and getting peace out of it, but yet it's not what we would say is glorifying to God.
I firmly believe deep inside
Hmm.
they know that their peace is now you do people mix up joy and peace.
Hmm.
And you can it's like if you're addicted to something, right? So I never did drugs, but I was a smoker.
Hmm.
So when you hit that cigarette and you get that nicotine in your body, there's a peace or a sense of peace.
Relief. Yeah.
But yeah, you just said it perfectly. There's relief.
Mm.
That's not peace.
Temporary.
Yeah,
Ah.
it's temporary.
Hmm.
And also, I'd like to define peace as shalom. The
Hmm.
biblical idea of peace is different from our peace, our
Hmm.
definition, or the modern definition. Right? Modern definition
Hmm.
is a lot more to do with not doing anything or no one bothering you. It has more to do with, I
Sounds
think,
peaceful to me.
yeah, like autonomy, right? Like you have to be autonomous to be peaceful in modern
Okay.
society, right? It's about doing nothing. It's not about
Mm.
peace together and making something. It's not
Hmm.
seeking the shalom.
Mm.
I would really, I mean, I've seen so many people in the books that I read and stuff of these people who think that they have peace because I'll tell you, money, you can do so much with money
Yeah.
that if you have enough of it, you can keep on spending it to get that dopamine hit
Hmm.
or that sense of peace.
Mm.
Like you can spend a lot of it, but man, I have never like when you meet peaceful people, you know that they have peace.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I mean, I've met a lot of wealthy people, and I have never met anyone who is out there who does not know the Lord, who is out there to glorify themselves, have
Mm.
that kind of peace.
Well, yeah,
I've
glorifying
never.
themselves. Yeah, I think that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely always a trap. Definitely a trap. I guess I was trying to ask another question, and then I ended up asking that question instead. Um, but neither here nor there. You answered it well. Shalom. I like that. Would you say it's like this peace that, what do they say in the Bible, that surpasses all understanding, right? This like, how else would you describe that peace, that shalom? I know it's hard to like.
No, no, and I know why you said purpose because it circles back.
Mhm.
There's a great peace in finding the purpose of your life in the Lord.
Facts.
Hmm.
And like peace is, I think, pretty active, at least shalom to me, right? When right in the time of exile they say seek the shalom,
Mm.
plant your roots into the land you are in exile, right? Like plant your seeds. I found that very interesting of wow, it's not get better than the people and then like but it's about the whole community finding something together.
Mm.
And so I think there's an active element to peace.
Okay.
And you're right, right? If you find the Lord, the reason why He gives you peace, I believe, is you have a purpose, and there is a knowing that there's a greater purpose, like Elisha was saying, right?
Mm.
Of of like like to be free from the shackles. I mean,
Yes.
there's something great
That's
about having purpose,
yeah.
but without the weight of fi- of trying to carry that and making sure that you live up to that purpose, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So
No, it
I
absolutely.
do think that there, yeah, it is related, but it has to have Christ in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to agree with that. And we're going to have people on the show that aren't going to agree with that, but I'm going to agree with that. And that brings us into the next question then, uh, for Elisha. How do you approach discussions or disagreements with people who hold different beliefs? And like, if you can share an example.
Sure.
Mhm.
So I've always believed in having friendships with those who have different belief systems.
Okay.
And so one of my recent friendships, and by God's grace, they went on to be with the Lord.
Mm.
Um, and I hope I had a part in that. But just having conversations with a person from a different faith, Buddhism in particular,
Okay.
and being able to share. Like
Mm.
they talk about emptying oneself, right? A lot. They talk about I got to get rid of my own desires. I got to get rid. I got to get rid. I got to get rid. And I thought,
Natural.
that's good.
Mm.
That's not a bad thing at all,
No.
because most, at least for the Buddhists that I know who are sincere,
Mm.
they're authentic people who want to follow that truth,
Facts.
or their version of the truth. So, and both of us respected one another's position,
Mm.
and we would often use these words, and I offer it to anybody who want to use it. When you come to a place of agreement, we would say, okay, that we agree. And so we would say, okay, that's a point of being able to say we align. We
Okay.
align.
Yeah.
And then when we come to a disagreement, we would use the word divergence. So that's where the roles diverge.
That's cool.
And we would agree and respect one
Mm.
another in that.
Mm.
And through those conversations, through many, breakfasts and having coffee together, my hope was that, I would rub off on him and he would rub off on me.
Yeah.
And so through that friendship, what happened was that they began to coming to some of our services.
Cool.
And we would talk about, and they would actually give me feedback on my sermons,
Nice.
and give me kind of a Buddhist view of what I'm trying to say and whatnot. And it formed me.
That's
I think I became a better preacher because I want to reach the people who have different faiths. And through that journey, I found a lot of convergence,
mm.
right? And I would say sometimes I push back and say, well, after you've emptied yourself, what do you fill yourself up with? And I would say in my in my belief, in my spiritual beliefs, God fills us. God fills that void. He
Okay.
gives me purpose. He gives me peace. He gives me a plan for joy. And for a Buddhist person, that would be like, I've never heard that kind of doctrine before.
Yeah.
How can God infill a person? And so I was like, well, but I think Buddhist, I think you are the perfect candidate
Mm.
because you've spent all your life emptying yourself.
Yeah.
So now you've got to fill yourself up with the creator God who loves you and has a plan for you. And so that kind of conversation
Mm.
really helped form me, but also lead a person to Christ. And before he died, I was with him. I was with him, and I said, "You have to receive Christ." And he told me, he's like, "You know my history.
Mm.
Although I'm a Buddhist, I grew up in the church, and what I've come to find now is that I think I never left Jesus.
That's dope.
I think I never left Jesus."
I like that.
And so I did his funeral and whatnot. So yeah, these conversations with people from other beliefs, I welcome them.
It sounded like there was a respect though. A respect
A
going on.
mutual respect.
Respect.
100%.
And
100%.
I think that's so vital today because I think, yeah, I don't see that a lot. I don't see conversations happening, and I'm even speaking to my own interactions in the past. If somebody has a different belief than me, let's say, had a different political stance, had a different view on money, had a different view on, I like had to be right and force it on them, and I realized I was actually pushing them further away.
So if I may, Kurt,
Respect.
this relationship that I had with my friend,
Mhm.
we based it off respect
That's dope.
because it's almano, right? It's a human to a human.
Yeah.
And what we defined at the beginning of our conversation
Mm.
was what we're trying to do is learn from one another. Either we converge
Mhm.
or we're going to diverge.
Yeah.
And even if we diverge, we can say, I can see where you're coming from. I don't agree with you. My beliefs don't align with that, but I can say I can respect that.
I like
I
that.
can respect that. So I give you that respect, and
Mm.
I hope you can give me that respect. And when those two things come together, then a conversation can actually happen. because
Fact.
I'm not in the conversation to get you to do something. I'm not a salesman. I'm not
Mm,
giving you a sales pitch.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not trying to make you buy something from me. I
completely.
actually care about a meal that I have with you. I
Mm,
care about you
interesting.
because you're a human being. Because in my belief, you're a human being created in God's image,
Yeah,
right?
that,
And so that kind of approach helped me.
that's awesome.
And even if our thoughts will diverge all the way, at least, at least I've had the privilege of having a meal, having time to talk with them and listen to them, and they felt heard, they felt listened to. They at least know that this Christian pastor, all
Mm,
right, at least he's a good human being,
I like
and
that.
he represents somebody of humanity,
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
having that respect, I think
Mm,
it's huge.
I love that, and I love the fact that you said you're not a salesman. That I dig with so much because in my early days I tried to like sell everyone on it, and then actually I learned in AA they said attraction rather than promotion, so that's when the
There
relationships
you go.
right
Attraction. Yeah.
I started just to build the relationships, and then hopefully they can see it through how I'm living, or sometimes how I'm not living it. Um, so, Jonathan, Pastor Jonathan, could I ask you the same question? Where how would you approach? And I'm sure it's something very similar, but do you have any difference or anything to add to like if you have a discussion and a disagreement with somebody, how would you handle that? How do you handle that?
Well, I think the my initial response is I don't like it,
Yeah,
and I first need to own that.
yeah,
I need to own, my fight or flight response in
mm,
my body. So owning that, number one, of
yeah,
that's the initial reaction. It's not the person that's making uncomfortable. It's
yes,
just right the cognitive dissonance, right? Like the
yes,
whoa, right?
mhm,
That so owning that I think is the was the first step. And I'm very used to this. And the simple reason is this. I am in a denomination where one of the major issues that causes schism, I'm on the other side of it. Of I should have jumped ship, but I didn't.
yes,
After because God is still has a purpose for me here. So most of the
mm,
people that I do meet, in that issue, and even in the issue of basic theological beliefs,
mm,
I disagree with. So we are already in disagreement.
okay. With your
Even
own
in
people,
my
you're saying.
peers, and with my own people.
Got
Now,
you.
but I still like now some I don't know if I can say oh they're all my people.
Mhm.
God is still working in my heart, and I hope that one day I can be able to say that.
Yeah.
And I just have to be honest with myself. But one of the things that I've always thought of, man, instead of the result of the
Mm,
disagreement, can I just ask that simple question, why, and hear the story?
Yes.
There has to be a reason why they came up with that conclusion.
Yes.
And to me that's the more important thing.
yep.
And also what Elisha said, I realized that it's not my goal to change anyone.
Mhm.
It can never be, because that makes it not relational but transactional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you see what that violates the sacred worth, I believe, of a human being.
Mm,
That the very fact that I have to believe that someone needs the same opinion as me, if this
mm,
person doesn't have the same, I know this is strong language, and I'm not trying to judge anyone, because again, I'm the first to admit you got to fight that flight or fight response, right?
have to.
I,
Yeah.
I and it is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot to fight.
Mhm.
I mean, there's every it takes every bit of energy
Mhm.
to fight that, but like because right that's that like what does it really mean to have someone of sacred worth and
Mm,
treat them with dignity? Like, do you know what I mean? like
mhm.
like what does that mean? And I realize it's really not judging a person, and if you want to spend time with this person or not based on what they believe. It's the person themselves has a worth, and these are people, because if Jesus came down on earth to dwell with us,
Mm.
to dwell with all the people in the
Oh.
region where he was, all, then that is the sacred worth of a person, is it not? That everyone deserves someone to dwell with them and to
Mm.
go step and step with them, even if there are disagreement on things.
Yeah.
So I have really found that of, instead of just reacting, I just like, oh, why is that? That's it. When it's a disagreement, it's like, say, hey, that's interesting, and I'd practice this because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I wear my emotions on my like face, man. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like,
I haven't seen
and
that
like,
expression in a while, but I like it.
I'm just like, what? But you can't, like, that's bad, right? If you're like
Yeah.
someone, the moment someone like throws something,
Yeah.
like,
I,
so it just I just had to practice. Wow, that's interesting.
mhm.
Number one,
Mm,
I genuinely have to be interested,
yeah.
Yeah.
right?
That.
And then I'd say, or sometimes I say, hey, I think you want me on your side. Why is it so important that I am on your side?
Mm.
That's a good one.
Not why do you think, right? Sometimes people just decide to believe in something,
Yeah.
right? It like, it's like, how many Red Sox fans, right, just decide one day they're just gonna be Red Sox fans, right? You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I'm digging at you
Well, they're
guys,
born that way,
New England,
right?
right? Right, like it's like a sports team. Like,
Mm.
why do you decide? I don't even know why I'm a Cubs and Bears fan. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, because I'm from Chicago. Like, no,
Yeah.
some people just decide. And if that's the case, if I ask them, why do you think that? They're not going to have an answer to it.
Mm.
But what's also interesting is then asking that other question, like, why is it important that I agree with
Mm.
That's a good
you?
one.
That's
Not
good.
wording it in that way per se. That's a little too direct.
Yeah. But
But still trying to get at that, in that question of, why does this person need me to agree
mm.
with this person? So, but honestly, even with some of my people in the denomination, uh, totally different beliefs, but again, as Elisha said, utmost respect.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sometimes when there's a group of people that think the similar things, the voice gets really loud and really strong.
Yep.
After the meeting, I'd have people come and say, I'm sorry I said it that way.
Mm.
I hope it didn't offend you.
Mm.
And like, that's really, really big for them.
Absolutely.
Just to, and so, because I felt that, I was
Mm.
like, wow, this person actually believes in the sacred worth of me.
Mm.
Enough so that even though they know they're in a
Mm.
room full of people that are in agreement on one thing, they will go to the one person that disagrees and say something about it, so to make sure that I don't feel all dejected and horrible.
That's
Like
awesome.
that, so I've learned a lot from that.
Mm. Absolutely. So you would agree though it has to be a respect thing, right? Like we have to have respect for one another,
Yes.
one another's humanhood, and the shape, the experiences, context in which has shaped them, to believe that, right? Like you said, like a
Yes.
Cubs fan, why are you? Because you grew up in Chicago, most likely, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that's that's probably why. So like I think, yeah, for me, I I couldn't, much like much like yourself, I had to fight that urge. Yeah, fight that urge to just want to respond and push my belief on them. But when I started to hear the people and listen to them and truly listen to them, um, I think that's when my heart was able to like chill out, see why they're shaped that way, why they believe that, and yeah, and then be able to just agree to disagree, right? Like, or is
Good.
that diverge, right?
Yeah, the divergence, the
Yeah.
convergence. But I want to go back on what Jonathan said, the
Mm.
sacred value or the sacred worth
Mm.
of a human being. Wow, that's powerful, right? Because you're having a conversation with somebody that may have a different political view, or they might be a Yankees fan and you're a Red Sox or whatever, right? But if you understand at the basis that they have worth, and it's the worth of Jesus dying on the cross for their sins. They might not know it, they might not profess it, but Jesus died for all humankind.
Mm.
And so knowing that self-worth of the self-worth of sacred worth of that person, and if we treated one another with that kind of respect, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Because you wouldn't be having shouting matches. Why do people have shouting matches?
Mm.
Most of the time it's because you're trying to shove something on, down somebody else's
Right.
throat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But shouting at somebody is not really going to help them to be attracted to your belief. Rather, having a conversation and trying to understand and trying to have that genuine curiosity.
Mm.
For me, what has helped me in conversations is being genuinely curious about
Yeah.
help me understand how you got to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Help me understand how that idea has been formed in your mind that you're so convicted that
Mm.
you're almost foaming at the mouth. That kind of, like, help me understand. I'm just trying to understand you.
Mm.
And that has helped alleviate a lot of tension in conversations.
Yeah.
And I think, Kurt, you had a similar experience with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've a couple experiences. I don't know if you're thinking about this, the one that I'm thinking about.
It was like the political kind of thing that
Oh,
was
geez, it
going
is.
on,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's what came to mind.
So yeah, I was talking with this kid. This kid, I call people kids. I was talking with this gentleman, and he had, and I don't believe in any of these. But I'm just going to preface by this: I don't believe in none of these politicians. But I had an aversion to one politician at the time, and I had a long day. I was tired. I was not able to fight the fight or that feeling, that fight or flight feeling that Jonathan was talking about. And I just kept trying to ask this gentleman a question, and they would come back and say to me about the other politician. And I was just like, wait, but no, I'm asking you this question. And at that point, I ended up chasing him out of my office. And I'm a pastor also. So, um, yeah, chasing him out of my office. And if I would have caught him, I probably would have hurt him. Thank God I didn't. I had to call him back right away and apologize and say, I'm so sorry. I was tired, blah, 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 all these excuses. The fact of the matter was I wasn't mature enough to respect this other person's opinion and also to see what shaped him. Why
Yes,
does he believe those things?
right.
Like that to me really changed a lot of things because there's this dude right in like my right hand up here, the dude who I see do everything, blood, give people the shirt off his back, drive them to detox, drive them to the hospital, work with them, take them on as employees when he knows he can get burned. I mean, does a lot of things for people, right? But his political view was one that I was like, how do you get there? How are you there? Like,
Right.
how that makes no sense to me.
Right, right.
But I got to know him as a person first. So
Yes.
I loved him regardless. That's really what and then like I kind of was like, oh, well, I understand where he grew up. I understand the people he grew up around. I understand I also started to listen to him and he was saying the same thing as me, but differently. Like I was like, how is that loving? And he explained to me how that was loving. He was
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I believe the best thing, because for him, the best thing that happened to him was when everyone turned their backs on him, which they didn't, but I'm trying to be drastic here. They turned their backs on him and he had to pull himself up by his bootstraps. And
Mm.
he was able to do that though. That's the difference. And I wanted him to see that, but I let that be. So either way, right? I saw him for who he was. That he was saying the same thing. I love these people, and that's my political view is actually one of love as well, because I think that we are hindering people rather than helping them, enabling them rather than blah blah blah. Right? Like he pointed all this out, and I was like, oh, okay, I can dig that. I can dig that if you like if that's what you believe. So, but yeah, the point of the matter is, I need to mature. I need to grow up.
I think for you to acknowledge, and even Jonathan, yeah, I think it's big of you guys to be
Mm.
able to say that, and
I think
that's
sometimes
huge.
we click a lot on certain things.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good for us to acknowledge those things because let me put it in this way:
Mm.
political, cultural things that the enemy of our souls tries to insert into the
Mhm.
church, and it's like a Trojan horse that comes in,
Yes.
right? But what if church leadership or people in the church use that against the enemy and use it for good in
Mm.
having those conversations and being
Yeah.
brutally honest by saying, I don't get it. I'm just not understanding.
Mm.
Can you help me understand that point of view
I like that
that
question.
you are so gung ho about? Because with my limited knowledge, I don't get it.
Mm.
And when we have those holy conversations, because the enemy brought it for evil,
Facts.
the enemy wants to divide and conquer.
Facts.
That's his strategy. But what if people like us who are beginning to realize that, yeah, we need to be better
Mm.
at talking and respecting and trying to understand, not because I want to change in following a particular political, party. It's just as a human being, I want to know where this came from. I want to know you
Yeah.
because I value you more
That,
than the party that you support.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what the enemy brought for evil, God can turn it around for good.
Yeah.
Can we begin to do that? Can we begin to voice that and say, can we just level and talk with one another?
Mm.
I think there's room for that.
I do too. I do too. I think that was, and that's kind of like one of the visions for this, right? Is seeing that we are divided. We are divided as a nation. Let's just be real. We are very divided, and whether it's politics or beliefs, even like as we're all Christians here, all of us, all three of us are Christians, and I'll say this: I can see how Christianity can sometimes be used to divide as well. You not now, I would say it's used improperly, but that's of course me now putting my yes, that's me putting what I believe and then diminishing how they practice Christianity. So I can't say that either. So I
No,
don't know.
no,
Go on.
so so Elisha and I, when we were in the military, we used
Mhm.
to get in arguments all the time. Mostly
No.
started by me, mostly started by me because I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand him, man. Like, and Elisha knows this. And like, this is a funny thing, right? Like, this is what I mean, like, by relationships, and
Mhm.
and
Mm.
and just the fact that I'm talking with Elisha right now, right? The
Yeah.
fact that, like, man, because, like, so you have to, like, so if you were to do like church and like views of theology, whatever, I was like the ultimate like liberal theologian type, like quote all them liberal or like ultimate mainline, like
Mhm.
or like what I mean, like God forgives, I could sin whatever, I could live
Yeah.
whatever the way I want, right? And then
Yeah.
Elisha was like trying to be good, but then I'm like, man, why? Like I was like, why are you making fun of me, man? Like why are you saying it like that, man? Like why are you demeaning people? Like, what the? And like swearing at him because that was when I thought like that what didn't matter. Like I thought I was a cool Christian because I swore. And like I would just get at him all the time. I'm like, dude, this guy, man. Like he was the antithesis of what I wanted the church to be. And when he was like, I'm gonna be a missionary, I'm like, oh God, not in my church. Like and I bet you like he thought the same thing of me.
I
But
see.
at the end of the day, At the end of
Oh
the
man.
crazy thing is though, when something were to happen or when we had to make a
Yeah.
decision, we would go together and pray.
Yeah.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
it didn't matter if I just yelled at him. I treated him
Sure.
like crap because
mhm.
I knew deep inside he was trying to put me down. And I'm like, I'm not gonna take any of that, you know? And we would just get like nasty,
Yeah.
like nasty.
Mm.
Like I know, like I bet you people don't believe like because like Elisha, like right, and like I
Yeah.
have the pastor look on now, you know, like no, like he would get at it. Like we wouldn't do fisticuffs because I was much bigger, so I didn't want to hurt him.
Hey, we're in a
No,
different weight division, bro.
yeah, yeah. So we didn't get into any fisticuffs or anything, but like
Yeah.
I mean, so we were nasty, man.
Mm.
Like I was like cussing out direct nasty, and like Elisha was what is it, like passive aggressive nasty?
Got
Both
Yeah, yeah.
nasty, but in different
Yep.
ways. Like same
Sure.
thing. It was
Sure.
the same
Sure.
thing, and
Sure.
so and Elisha owns it, I own it. But the funny
Yeah.
thing is, right? It didn't matter. At the end, when he had to take his time off for 10 years, man, I missed him.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
I missed him. I actively sought him out, trying to figure out where he was
Yeah.
in his life throughout the 10 years.
Mm-hmm. I
Not
appreciate
because
that.
I missed, whatever, but because there's something sacred about a relationship that God gives you in your life.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
not that many of them that you can have.
yeah.
We can't have that many deep relationships, but there
Mm.
was something there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like talk about disagreement and disagreement on theology
Mm.
and beliefs. Like
Mm.
Elisha and I were like total opposite spectrums,
Yeah.
like polar opposites. But then
Mm-hmm.
if we talk to our mutual friends, they're like, both of you guys had a moral code. I'm like, what? Are you sure you saw that in me?
So
Like,
interesting. Interesting. So people saw. So would you say that when people looked at you guys that they saw that you guys had a good relationship, do you think? Would people look at you guys and be like, "Oh, that's a good friendship?"
I would say that's a relative question, right? It's
Mm.
relative because based on where they are coming from.
Okay.
Because sometimes they would witness our disagreements, right?
Yeah.
Disagreements, and they're like, oh, they hate each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they'd see us going to like early morning prayer at 4:30 a.m. and they're like, "Oh my goodness, they're friends."
Mm.
So it is pretty relative, but some people and Jonathan mentioned it. They said, "Yeah, but you guys lived on a moral code. You guys clicked in that
Yeah.
aspect."
Yeah.
And although we fought, I mean, it was, yeah, passive aggressive, actively aggressive, whatever you call it.
Friends.
you know, uh, Hate or frustration or anger is not the opposite of love. Indifference is the opposite of love.
That's
So
very
just the fact that we would debate and
mm,
disagree
mhm.
means that there was a respect for one another.
Yeah.
And going, just reflecting back on it, as Jonathan mentions it, yeah, I like the dude. He's a cool guy, and he's able to express what he believes.
Mm.
So that was huge. A relational capital that was built up because we gone through the thick and thin in the military, go through boot camp, eat the same kind of chow, all those things. It builds that relationship. So that's pretty unique. Uh,
Mm.
but what I want to put on the table is that could we begin to open up ourselves up to the possibility of building those relationships with people that we can disagree with
Mm.
different people,
Yeah.
with people from the other side, with people from different political views or whatnot? I think it's possible. For me,
Sure.
yeah, with Christ in me and with the power of the Holy Spirit, I think, yeah, though it might be a little bit frightening to
Mm.
sit down with an imam and have a meal,
Yeah.
why not? Right? With a Hindu guy, or
Mm.
I mean, I think those people, some of those people are very, very sincere.
Absolutely.
But that was who, Saul of Tarsus was.
Mm.
Very sincere about the Torah, right? So
Mhm.
he had to persecute the people of the way.
Yeah.
and God touches that man. So yeah, relational capital, building and having a mutual respect,
That's
and not backing out of the relationship even when it gets hard.
that's it right.
Jonathan and I,
Yes.
we didn't back out. We didn't disown each
No.
other.
Yes.
Though, like the next day, we'd have lunch together. Be like, okay, that was that was a good debate. Let's go get some food, and then we go out for coffee, whatever, right? I mean, that's a beautiful thing looking back.
That is dope.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain other than the grace of God, because
Yes.
my personality is you are dead to me was my motto. Like if someone like that was my way of life in relationships. But I don't know, for some reason, I other than the grace of God of teaching. Now you gotta keep in mind this was when we were in our early 20s, right? Right, like we can't have those arguments at our life stage now.
No.
Like it wouldn't end well. And so there is a maturity in life, I think, that took place in both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is we get psyche evals in our denomination for ordination and stuff like that. And I realized the psyche evals that I took, because we have to take many of them, I've turned more center into a lot of things.
Mm.
And I'm like, wow, what's happening? I believe it was the psychiatrist was saying, oh, it's because you're getting older, that you're gonna be a little bit more center now. You're not gonna be as extreme. And I think that too is right, because you learn life.
Yeah.
And I think we do have to own that as well. As you grow older and you meet more people, and God puts people in your lives that you disagree with, it really is. And I'm like, wow, I am in a place now where I can genuinely now accept some people who I would not have been able to accept 6 years ago.
Facts. Yeah.
And that's something that is really been eye opening to me. Of
Absolutely.
because like
Sure.
we don't have that option. We don't have the option to kick out parishioners that don't agree with us. That's not a pastor thing, man.
No.
Like
No.
I'm sorry. Like if there's any pastor out there, I'm sorry. You like, but no.
Yeah. I've actually been a part of that, but we're not gonna go there now. But I didn't, yeah, actually, because looking back, I don't feel like that was love, but they said it was. So either way, I guess we have to define what love is too, then, right?
Yes.
We
Yes.
have to define.
Absolutely.
I think that's the blessing that we have, like, is we have a book and an image also, right? Like, of what this love looks like, sacrificial love, like going
Mm.
cross for your enemy, right? Like
Yes.
giving up your life for your enemy.
Yeah.
And the truth is, that's actually the most freeing thing in the world when you ain't got no enemies. Like, that is the most freeing thing in the world. Because
Yes.
and the only reason I've been thinking about this is because earlier today I was going through a process of where, I guess in Christianity we'd say, oh, we pray for our enemies. But there's actually a process that I have to do so that I don't end up stabbing people. And what that process looks like is I have to take a look at my part in the situation, confess it to a brother, a mentor, brother, sponsor, whatever you want to call them. And then they help me to see also my part again in it. And then I pray, God, help me remove this from my heart. And that's the most freeing thing, because I think we talked about this last time. Like, it's literally physically tiring to hold on to anger. Like, it is at the end of the day, when I've had a long day of just like hating people, maybe I shouldn't say that as a pastor. A long day of like strongly not liking something that happened. It's tiring. I'm drained. So about every 3 to 4 months, I have to write these people out, and usually there's 2 to 3 people. And I have to pray about it, work through it and pray through. Otherwise, because it don't happen naturally. I don't know about for you guys, but for me, that don't happen naturally. I have a natural dispensation towards wanting to fight someone. I don't know why. maybe it's the way I was raised. Maybe it was, no, I know exactly why. Sorry. It was things that shaped me. It was, I don't, I know some theologies would say that we're born, that, some theologies would focus on humans being evil. Some would focus on them being love. Um, but I think it was context. I think I was shaped to be a very, angry, distrustful, and fight back at everything. So I have to work at this hard. I have to,
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty, but if I may speak into that,
mm,
all of us have different upbringings, backgrounds, traumas, disorders, dysfunctions, all of those things we do. But just as a friend, Kurt,
mm,
looking at your disposition, what would it look like to use all of that energy of anger and that fight
mhm.
for good? I mean,
Yeah,
I think that could be,
yeah.
I mean, that's a force to be reckoned with.
I
And I want to put more weight
mm,
onto the good fight that
mm,
God is allowing you to fight going forward with that kind of passion.
mm,
I would say it was a passion that God had given to you,
mm,
and due to circumstances and situations, it was funneled and channeled in a negative manner.
yeah.
But now you're on a different track, which I think it's an awesome thing. That's what only God can do,
Oh, only.
right? And so I just feel very encouraged and feel blessed to share that affirmation with you. Use that for good. That energy.
I appreciate that. We were talking about that earlier today with my boy, and that's what the conclusion we came to. Something similar. We were saying, like, maybe I'm going to experience the same feeling, but it's my perspective on the feeling. So, like, for example, my anxiety is actually the same feeling as excitement. It's just how I'm perceiving it.
Oh.
My anger is really the same as the passion. It's how well, maybe not that, but anger could be used as passion. I can see that. I could definitely see that. But yeah, I think it's how I perceive what I'm going through at the moment. And when
And it's a brand new neural pathway. It's
yeah,
a brand new way of looking at things,
yeah, yeah.
right? It's a brand new way of seeing opportunities rather than losses.
Mm,
It's a good way for you to stay in the fight rather than cut people off.
yeah.
So yeah, I see it as an opportunity.
Or-
Jonathan, yeah.
No, but Kurt, like the fact that you are angry about it, you don't get angry about things you have no passion for or you don't
Yeah,
care for,
that's true. That's
right?
true.
Yeah,
So,
that's for
so
sure.
I remember a pastor saying this to me in one of the seminars that I went to, and he said, the church members who were angry at me, sometimes ended up being the best leaders.
Yeah.
Mm,
So there was someone who was angry at the sermons every single Sunday. And then instead of saying, get out of my church, he said, oh, it seems like you're very interested in the sermons and the
mm,
materials and the theology behind it. Do you want to be part of the sermon writing team?
that's dope.
And that person, right? Like, I think that gives a chance for that person to reflect either if they're angry for the sake of being angry
Mm,
or if they're angry because they have a passion for it and they could use that energy
yeah.
to do something good. And
Yeah.
and I've used that, right? There's these people in our church newsletters, right? These little typos, man, they would come up with the typos. And I was like, praise the Lord. I don't care if I see a typo. Like, whoop de doo. And this is me, right? Like I had to work with publishers and stuff. So like, man,
Yeah.
my editor hated me probably. But like, right, like whoop de doo, you got the content. I mean, what's the big deal? Right? An
Mm,
E and a T, they look similar. Like
Mm,
we
mm.
all are educated enough to tell them apart, and but but like the people who are like, oh man, you got this time, this and this and this typo. I'm like, do you want to be part of a proofreading team?
There you
And
go.
every single week
Nice.
yeah.
they return something,
Nice.
Facts.
and I'm just like, what? So like, Kurt, I'm like, anger, like Elisha, you said, we need to figure out why we're angry
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
because that's
absolutely.
where we're gonna spend the most of our energy doing something.
Yep.
And so, like, right, like, right, like, saying things about the Bible in a not so in a very unholistic way, like cherry picking Bible verses, really makes me angry.
Okay.
But I could spend that time being angry at that person who said it that way, or I could spend my time reading more scripture and that energy of
Okay.
trying to figure out why it bothered me, why of trying to okay, if it's not cherry, I felt like it was cherry picked. Okay, let me try to see the whole context of this thing.
Mm,
Spend more energy on that, and that would make me a better witness of Christ.
yes.
Nice.
So
So
self-reflection almost like
yeah,
you're saying reflection or inventory of your heart is extremely important then, right? Knowing
yeah.
oneself almost. Yeah, I can think
Like why do we get like if someone does something to our children, right? I hope that we like want to explode because we love our children. I'd be more worried if something happened
yeah.
at school. And no, no, no. But here's the thing about PK hurt. I think
Mhm.
that's why a lot of pastors' kids are hurt
Yeah.
because their parents should have been angry, but they were more concerned about their image as a pastor.
Yep. I can dig that.
And
Dig
and
that.
and you know what? There's no excuse for that. I'm
Mm,
sorry, your kids were not important to you.
mm,
If your kid feels that,
mm.
like
I wrestle with
and so like I know
mm.
I say things strong. Like I always
Mhm.
like kind of like chop off like 20% of it, and just get the.
Take it with a
But
grain of salt. Take it.
yeah, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
Like
Mm,
we only get angry at the things that really matter to us.
that's a
yeah.
good
And
point.
if something happened to my child and I wasn't angry about it, if some injustice happened to my child and I
It's
wasn't
intentional.
angry about it, I
Mm.
would really need to check my heart.
That's a
I
problem.
can dig
Yeah,
that.
that's a
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then I want to just go back to one of the definitions of love as we're just talking about this
Mhm.
is that the power of the love that we profess and confess, right? The power of God's love is the power to turn an enemy into a friend, the power to turn somebody that hurt you and harmed you into a son and into a daughter, because that's exactly the love I've received, all of us,
Yes.
because we were enemies of God,
Amen. Yeah,
Mhm.
facts.
right? And so for us to treat other people like enemies and keep them that way,
It's
we're
crazy.
not living out that love.
Yeah, that's
We are
crazy.
not living out that love.
I agree. I do it all
So,
the time. That's my problem. So I have to check my heart, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And having definitions is important in any discussion,
Okay.
and reminding yourself of that definition as
Mm,
you go into any relationship or situation, I think is hugely important. One of the things that you said, Kurt, that I resonate with, we can't begin to just, cut people from our ministries because we
mm,
disagree.
yeah. Can't.
Because you're like cutting off body parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no wonder you can't run. You've chopped off two of your legs,
Mm, yeah.
right? And so that kind of knowing that this body life, we need one another. There's
Mm,
a reason why that person bugs me. There is a reason to that. Why it helps me to pray.
yeah.
It helps me to focus. It
Mm,
helps me to reflect. Because if everybody applauded you and me,
mhm.
we'd become so big headed in an
Oh
instant.
my gosh. Big time.
I
Big
mean,
time.
I know that about myself.
Yeah.
That's why I need critics. I need people to actually say, you're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, maybe I'm doing some things right, but you're seeing some of the stuff that I'm doing wrong. So I'll work on it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, help me understand. Like you talk to me about it.
Mm,
And I'll get better. And hopefully that's going to help you. Hopefully that's going to help me. So having the vastness of the ability to
mm,
receive constructive feedback and not feel as if I'm being attacked personally. Like I used to take everything personally. That's why Jonathan and I would disagree so much, because I think he was just attacking me,
yes.
right?
That's
But it
interesting.
wasn't really an attack on me. He was trying to help me,
Yeah.
right?
That's interesting. that is one of the main causes of why I'm so defensive. That's yeah. I get very Jeremy called me out a year ago, I think, said everything. You get defensive over everything. And then I had to take a look at that. And I was everything I would get. Even if somebody was coming at me with a good idea, I would feel like they're attacking me. And I realized that was paired with some past trauma, never being heard or acknowledged, or always told I was wrong. So I would have to fight against that. And I can't, this personality of always having to fight and being defensive. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just, they're not attacking. Wow, it's, man, I never really thought about it until this deeply until you just said it, that they're not attacking me. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're attacking, or not even attacking. They're just addressing an issue or a belief, so that's not even me. It's a belief. So I need to be able to separate that.
That's good. I
Hmm.
think separation is good, but also clarifying is important. And
Yeah,
you can say, "Are you trying
clarity.
to hurt me?
Yeah,
Because I felt a little bit hurt, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if it's you or if it's me."
Mm,
And
yeah,
if they say to you, "I tried to hurt you," then you can rebuke them in the name of
yeah,
Jesus.
absolutely. Right. Then you could be like, all right, I can dig it. I can dig it. That's
Like, help me understand. Let's clarify this
mm,
because I don't know why I'm feeling this discomfort. I don't know why I feel so hurt. And if they say that was not my intent, I'm just trying to help you see a blind side and to help you to become a better leader. And you're like, oh wow, thank you. Because I could have totally misconstrued that.
absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. Like, yeah, and
No,
it's so easy to do that, man. It's so easy to do that, and that's right. Clarity. That's, I think, key is having clarity on any situation. Uh, and it sounded like you did that also with your friend in the beginning of the conversation. You guys both discussed, like your Buddhist friend, you kind of set the ground rules and had some clarity in to begin
Yep.
with, and knew what you
Yeah.
guys were doing. And so, like,
Rules of engagement.
yeah,
You can go in and say, I'm not too clear about the rules of engagement because I've never had a Buddhist friend before,
mm,
and I don't want to upset you, offend you, or anything. But can we at least, respect? And that came, and that was really by the grace of God.
yeah,
And yeah, that was truly a good boundary to have because you won't go over those boundaries.
yes, boundaries too. Those are two key words. Clarity and boundary is those have been big in my life in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Actually, years, 2 years now.
good.
Boundaries. My counselor, my boss, my mentor, my everybody in my life would be harping on me about boundaries. And I thought they were bad things. I thought that they
Mm,
were these separations. They were separating me from people. Like, nah, yo, you don't understand. I'm just trying to love on.
mm,
Nah, like I need to leave my wife at 3 o'clock in the morning to go pick this guy up. Nah, I need to answer my phone in the middle of dinner and leave my kids on the table. Nah, I need to. And then I realized, like, nah, the most loving thing I can do is set those boundaries so that I can
mm.
be more present and not have resentments
Yes.
against these people or
Yep.
anything else, right? So yeah, boundaries is key, man.
It's good, good.
well,
Jonathan, you
well,
want to
if I
chime in? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So I was listening to an interview with I was listening to an interview with Russell Moore and David Brooks,
Hmm.
and they were having an interview about like how to talk with people,
Mm.
because that I think that has always been an art. It's just now I'm very grateful that it's been emphasized more. But anyway, one of the things that came to me was there is a moment in time when you get into an argument where your motivations change. And you have to be very cognizant of that. When your motivation changes in a conversation from talking about something to wanting to hurt that person because of something that you have felt, or if your
Mm.
motivation comes becomes wanting to prove yourself right,
Mm.
and it's no
Mm,
longer about the point itself, there comes a time where you have to stop that conversation. So, like, Elisha, you said, what is your intent? I think well intentioned things can well intentioned conversations can end up being uh, very, very, end up with very bad intentions when the
Right.
motivations shift. So I think that's really important to understand that. And like Elisha said, right, I can get from, I just wanted to say something to, now I want to hurt you.
Mm,
And we do have to be able to look at that as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that. And that's why boundaries are very important. That's one thing I learned from my
yes.
wife.
Yeah.
I'm like, honey, you're a
Yes.
pastor's wife. Shouldn't you be like, I was like, no, man, I can't love on these people more than my boundaries because I'll just
Mm,
end up hurting them.
fact.
I'm going to be
Yes.
bothered. So I'm going to, and you know what? That's why I think love comes from God. The more love we receive from God,
Mm,
Mm,
the more we can love on others.
yes.
And so yeah, I just wanted to mention that that's not a, conversations don't necessarily start with an intent to hurt. Most of the times, it's
mm,
just it means nothing.
yeah.
It's actually a way to just get closer. Actually, right? Like
Mm.
sometimes you want to flash your colors, right? Just to say, hey, are you gonna be my tribe, right? And then if you get all offended, all of a sudden you be like, what you just say? It goes downhill very quickly from there,
Mm, yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
when those motivations change, we really have to be cognizant of those.
Absolutely.
So
That's a good point. That's a good point. So I guess we're gonna wind down, Kurt.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. I definitely diverged from and didn't really get into the questions, but we had some good conversations. So,
I
we'll.
thought it was awesome.
All right, cool, cool.
Yeah.
We'll clarify and talk and what's the word called when you guys look back on a situation and you talk about it and see how it went. You
We can assess.
react.
best one of those things. Well, we'll get together and we'll talk about how we think it went. But I wanted to thank you guys for at least rocking with me and trying this out and seeing how this went, and hopefully we'll. I appreciate you guys' honesty. I appreciate you guys being open and willing to talk. I know it's not an easy thing to bare your soul or bare who you are in front of people.
Well,
So,
I want to say thank you for asking those good questions because we as pastors don't often get to speak a lot, especially in terms of counseling, because we're mostly asking the questions and listening a lot. But you've given us, at least me, an opportunity to share, and reflecting on those things helps me to see the grace marks that God has put in my life. So
that's
appreciate you facilitating. I think you did an awesome job.
Thank you, man. That lifted me up. That's one thing Elisha is great about, right? Is boosting people up. He does that.
Yep.
I do. Oh wait, Kurt, pray us out before you close. All right, yeah. Actually, if y'all got any prayer requests, put them in there. I do. That's something I like to do before anything or after and before I close something is ask the people if they got any specific prayer requests, and just pop them in the chat if you do, because that's what it's there for.
I think that's a really good idea. I want to say thanks to Bill and Megan and Mike
Yes.
for for joining us, and probably many others. Maybe they'll join us later on
Mm,
on the podcast.
yeah.
If you still want to put it up on the chat, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we can go back to it and pray. There's power in prayer,
Yeah.
and so I think that's a really good way
Do you
to.
guys got anything specific? You guys before so I know what to pray for?
Well, for me, it's a very selfish prayer.
Oh.
But I want people to come to church tomorrow.
All
But
right.
there's a snowstorm coming,
Yeah, yeah.
so I got to work on my live stream thing. We haven't done our live stream for a while,
Okay.
so I mean, I want them to be safe, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's our first Sunday morning service of the year, and
Okay.
it's our communion service too. So, for safety, but the Lord's will above all else, and then for me to try to work out all the kinks of live streaming. It's not easy. I'm not a tech. I need Jonathan in my team. He can do all sorts of stuff. But
Yeah.
a prayer for God's will for tomorrow, and for the word to be preached, and for hearts to receive.
To be heard. Yeah.
Please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything for you, Jonathan?
Just pray for where I'm a pastor, and uh, you know, we,
Absolutely.
I don't want to, like speak of the place that God has sent me in a bad light, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I
oh
hear you.
man, we really need Jesus.
I hear you.
Amen.
We really do. Oh my
Mm.
goodness.
Mm.
Like
Well, he
the
sent the right person.
difference,
Yes, I
the
agree.
I hope so. I hope
Mm.
so. But just the light, how different our community could be if there
Mm.
was
Mm.
just the light of Christ that
Mm.
shines. So
Mm.
just really pray.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good
And
stuff.
then we got Heather. If you, I'll definitely be praying for that. Her mom's in a facility. She's going through some serious health issues, and then of course her and her sister Summer. So why am I drawing a blank on your mom's name again, Heather? It's Oh my golly, I pray for it all the time. That's bad. Summer is your sister and Mary is your mom. Boom. My brain is shot. All right, dope. And Mikey, if you got anything, I actually know what you want. That's kind of cocky to say, but I think I know what you want. And Megan and Bill, I got y'all too. Um, so all right, cool. Do you guys mind if I pray?
Let's do it.
All right, word. Well, God, we come to you now grateful for this opportunity that you've given us to gather in this unique space. Thank you for technology. I usually am cursing technology, but thank you for technology that you've given us. Uh, Three different people in three different parts of the country, but also different people tuning in. That we have the ability to come together. Thank you for that, God. Community is so important, Lord. So thank you for that. Thank you for the conversation we've had. Thank you for both Pastor Elisha and Pastor Jonathan's hearts. I pray for where Pastor Jonathan is at, man. You heard his heart. You know what time it is.
Yes.
You know the struggles that he's dealing with. So please strengthen him. Give him that patience, that tolerance, that peace that only you can give. And let it just like pour out, man. Let the people see that, God.
Yes, God.
I know you're using him, God. I know you are. So thank you for that. I pray for all their hearts out there too, that they experience that peace and joy that comes from you again. That they get to that taste that freedom, right? And be like, ooh, that's good, man. That same freedom you've given me, Pastor Jonathan, Pastor Elijah, and others. I pray for Pastor Elijah's church as he deals with the difficulties of now technology. I pray that that goes smoothly, that everything just happens to work, that people get there safe and sound in that snowstorm, that you speak through him, and that you open up the people's hearts, God. That you allow them to take the message, your message, and that it shapes and molds them and does some cool things in the insides and then propels them out to love on other people as well. Pray for Heather's mom, Mary, that you know what time it is, you know what she's struggling with, you know how she's feeling, you know how Heather's feeling. I pray that you give Heather the strength as she supports Mary. I pray for the doctors, the nurses, all that. And also her relationship with her sister, God. I pray that you do some healing there. I know, man. I know that you're not about division. I know, especially among sisters, God. I pray that you can mend that relationship and that you can heal also Summer's heart, man. She had a big loss. A loss no parent should experience. And I pray that you just can heal her from that she can feel whole again. Um, and that obviously comes from a relationship with you and also even maybe the right site, whatever you got to do, God, use whoever you got to use, do whatever you got to do uh, to help heal her. But again, thank you for this space, for this time, for this opportunity that we wouldn't normally get. I'm just grateful, man. I hope that we were wise stewards of the time. I hope that the message was preached and that somebody heard it and that you use this, God, somehow to help somebody enter into a relationship with you so that they may feel full, whole, and at peace. And then also so that they can live into their true purpose.
Yes,
That's a
God.
great feeling, man. That really is. And I appreciate that you've given each of us three here tonight, that you've given us clarity on that purpose,
Mm.
given us the ability to live out that purpose. Help us and enable us to do that more fully, God. And most importantly, I pray that you give us the humility to be like open to being shaped more and more into the image of love, of true love, of your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray.
Amen.
Thank,
Awesome.
thank you. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Next Saturday, right? We're gonna get together again. Every Saturday, 4:30, we'll be right here. It might look differently. It might be a different conversation, different format, whatever. But uh, thank you for joining in. And next week, actually, right, Pastor Elisha, we'll be coming from in the middle. In the
That's
middle.
the hope.
Yeah. Hope,
Yes.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
On our new channel.
Yeah. Maybe we'll try that out midweek. We'll try it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, give it a go.
All right.
And then, yeah, meet back on Saturday.
Sweet. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to us, and hopefully you were touched. So,
Thanks, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe. Share to
yes,
your friends.
yes, yes.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Jonathan.